I grew my hair to mid-back length in the span of 3.5 years without relying on protective styles whatsoever. But before that, I big chopped 3 different times and I tried to grow long hair for years. So if I could go back in time, here are some things that I would never ever do to my hair again so I could reach my length goals even faster. I know that I will get a lot of pushback when it comes to the first mistake because this is a myth that refuses to die. My very first mistake was believing in the idea of protein-moisture balance. This is the idea that your hair needs an even balance of protein and moisture. Too much protein and your hair becomes stiff and brittle. Too much moisture and it goes stringy and mushy and becomes very, very weak. I have avoided so many amazing products for years because I was so terrified of getting protein or moisture overload. I now know that there is no such thing as protein-moisture balance. The fundamental problem with this misconception is that what people believe to be moisture in hair care is not actually moisture. What people refer to as moisture is actually conditioning. Products that are marketed as being very moisturizing are just conditioning products. So their purpose is not penetrating your hair and make it softer. They are there to leave film formers over your hair that will make it smoother and nicer even after the water evaporates. Also, a lot of proteins in hair care products are also conditioning agents. But the problems with proteins is that a lot of them are not as good at sticking onto your hair as other popular conditioning agents are, like amodimetical. And as a result, after using those products, your hair might feel more brittle than if you had used a more moisturizing product, but that's just a result of the protein not being as good at forming a film over your hair. This entire idea also ignores the fact that not all proteins have molecules that are small enough to be able to penetrate into your hair. And even with the ones that are small enough to be able to penetrate into your hair, there is actually not a consensus among scientists whether or not to do anything. I've seen some scientists say that they do believe it does something, and I've seen some cosmetic chemists say they don't believe they do anything. For example, Dr. Trevor Evans, PhD from TRI Princeton, equates using proteins on hair to throwing sawdust at a woodhouse to repair it.
If you really want to confuse someone who's singing the benefits of keratin in a formulation, ask them what type of keratin is in there. Returning to a house analogy, the building blocks of my house are wood, but it's made of different types of wood. If my house becomes derelict, it does me no good to stand outside and throw sawdust or 2x4s at it. Yet again, there appears to be a well-entrenched misconception that such an occurrence would arise in terms of products containing keratin and hair.
Essentially meaning it does nothing and it's just put in there for marketing. But I also know that there is some good evidence that certain hydrolyzed proteins are able to make your hair stronger. Although that could be because they offer some lubrication to the hair as opposed to penetrating the hair and making it internally stronger. Either way, I missed out on a lot of great products because of that unfounded fear. If you are struggling with protein overload, maybe try a clarifying shampoo and a very, very conditioning product. It might get rid of the issue. I wanted to start this channel years before I actually did, but I always postponed it because unless it was perfectly done, I felt like it wasn't worth doing. There was always a reason why it wasn't the right time yet, and that all or nothing mentality held me back for much longer than it should have. Similarly, a lot of us fall into this pattern with our hair. We believe we'll start taking better care of it when we have the right products, the perfect routine, longer hair health, the right products, and so on and so forth. More time, and in reality, you're just doing yourself a disservice. Having someone to talk to that can help you see how taking tiny steps towards a bigger goal can be life-changing is immensely helpful. I would not have this channel or this community if not for that. BetterHelp, the paid partner of this video, is an online therapy platform that makes starting easier. You take a short quiz asking you who you are, what your beliefs are, what kind of therapist you'd feel most comfortable with, so the platform can match you with a credentialed therapist that is a good fit for you. After that, you can talk through whatever medium is the most comfortable for you, be it phone, video, or text, whatever fits you best. Over 6 million people have gotten help through BetterHelp, earning 4.8 out of 5 stars on the App Store. And if for some reason the therapist that you got matched with is not a good fit for you, you can change at any time with no extra added cost. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/floature for 10% off your first month. Alright, on to mistake number 2. My second mistake was wearing protective styles year-round. Before you come for me, please listen all the way through. I have always wanted to have long hair, and I thought the best way to achieve that was to never actually touch my hair. So I would wear protective styles back to back to back, because if I wasn't touching my hair, then I could not cause breakage, and if I wasn't causing breakage, I was retaining all the length, and if I was retaining all the length, eventually I would have very long hair. That was my logic, and that plan actually could have worked. I actually think that is the easiest way to get to very long hair over time. It just didn't work for me, and that's because my execution was really bad. The protective styles that I was doing were very detrimental to my hair, and they were being installed by people who had little care for my hair health. If I was getting braids, they would be installed on the hair that got harshly blow dried with no product, not even heat protection. Whoever was braiding my hair would be yanking, pulling, detangling with a fine tooth comb. It was horrible. But even when I wasn't getting my hair done by someone else who knew nothing about how to take care of my hair type, I sometimes would commit grave mistakes. For example, at the time, I did not know how bad constant tension on your scalp was for the overall health of your hair and the overall health of your scalp. If your goal is to grow long hair through protective styling, the goal of the protective style should always be first and foremost to preserve the health of your hair. A badly installed protective style can set you back years. It is not worth it. I personally have had to big chop 3 times, so I know this from personal experience. Overall, I'm not against protective styling, even though my videos might make it seem as if I am. I actually think it's the fastest way to achieve your hair goals, and I still do what I consider to be protective hairstyles with my own hair. It's just that people no longer call them that. I love putting my hair into pigtails or a loose bun on the daily. Those are also protective styles. If I'm on holiday, I will be wearing mini twists or mini braids so that I can enjoy my vacation. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that protective styles do not simply mean using added hair. Another benefit of no longer doing protective hairstyles year-round that I don't think anyone ever talks about is the fact that you can actually assess your hair health day to day. Because I wash my hair every single week and because it stretches all the time, I am at all times aware of how healthy my hair is. And I can see whether I'm progressing or regressing. And in the event that I'm regressing, I know that there's something that needs to be tweaked in my haircare routine. When you constantly rely on protective hairstyles, you don't necessarily do that. Or actually, let me just talk about me because this video is about me. I wasn't really doing that. Because I was rushing from one protective style to another, I've never really had time to assess my hair health. At the time, I was also really afraid of heat, but I will talk about that later. But you can't assess your natural hair very well unless you at least blow dry it. At some point, I had breakage everywhere and I was completely unaware of it, and I assumed that my hair was very healthy because I had it covered all the time. While I believe that they have their place, I also think that it did more harm to my journey than good. My third mistake was, and I say this all the time, I am sorry if I'm becoming a broken record, my third mistake was not washing my hair enough. The fact that my hair has grown so much more over the last 3.5 years than the decades before can be attributed to my haircare routine, but I honestly think the biggest contributor has been the fact that I wash my hair a lot more often. This is tied up to the fact that I used to do protective hairstyles all the time before to not mess up the style, or because I was afraid of tangling my hair up if I was washing it under a protective style, I would go really long periods without washing my hair. I think I was averaging once a month, and sometimes I would go longer than that. I genuinely did not think that there was anything wrong with it because curly hair is naturally drier than other hair types, because sebum does not travel further down our strands the way it does with other hair types. So while they need to wash their hair very often, I don't. That was the entire logic. At the time, my scalp was in such a bad state and I was completely unaware because I did not know anything else. I did not know what a healthy scalp was supposed to look like. I had flaking, itchiness, irritation. I just thought that was normal. That's crazy. My scalp is naturally on the drier side. If I put my finger up here and I try to get sebum, there's nothing there. This is 6 days after washing my hair. I still don't have any sebum up here, basically nothing. And in my head, scalp issues were reserved for people who produce too much sebum. I have now washed my hair once a week on the dot for 3.5 years. I use 2 types of shampoo, one of which is a medicated shampoo, and I also use a scalp serum 2 times a week, and all of that has made it so that my scalp is in a pristine state. It has never been healthier, it has never been cleaner. By the time it's wash day, I can look at my scalp and there is no flaking. My hair also used to break around the crown area, and that area would get really sore, and I did not know what that was, and I used to look for it and no one had an answer for me. It's because of scalp irritation. If you had that issue, try washing your hair more often. It might help. Mistake number 4 was being afraid of heat. Heat has been my best friend for the last few years, and now that I know a lot more about hair science, I now know exactly how to use it to my advantage so I don't get catastrophic results, and it actually helps me along my length retention journey. I have always said this, and I will always say this: heat is damaging. Heat is not only damaging, the damage from heat is cumulative. That means that the more you apply heat to your hair, the more you will damage it over time. If you take a strand of hair and you straighten it 50 times and then look at it under a microscope, it will look more damaged after the flat ironing than it did before. That is just a fact of life. However, depending on the way that you want to wear your hair, using heat might be more beneficial to it than leaving it in its natural state. There's this interesting article that I found that talks about a study where researchers took hairdressers and flat ironed them 100 times at 440 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the highest temperature that most flat irons get to. The researchers then combed through the hair and counted how many strands broke. And the hair that had been flat ironed actually broke less than the hair that had not been flat ironed. Okay, so this does not mean that heat is not damaging, because we already acknowledged that it is. What's happening is that the flat iron is temporarily aligning the hair fibers in one direction, which means less friction and less snagging when you comb through it. So the hair acts as if it's healthier when it's flat ironed, even though it's not. The researchers proved this by then reverting the hair back to its natural shape using humidity. And once the style wore off, breakage went way up compared to hair that had never been touched by heat. So to recap, the flat iron hair behaved more healthily than the unsweetened hair until the flat iron hair was reverted to its original state, under which the damage became a lot more apparent and it broke off more. They also tested hairdressers that had conditioning ingredients applied to them before the straightening, and they found that the conditioners were preventing the heat-treated fragile hair from breaking to the point where the damage heat had inflicted on the hair wasn't noticeable to the consumer, meaning that conditioning ingredients can actually mask the amount of damage that has been inflicted on hair after straightening. I bring this all up because earlier in my journey, when I decided that I was only going to wear my hair and nothing but my actual hair, I would follow routines done by people with a hair texture that was looser than mine. And because I was so terrified of using heat, I would try to replicate those routines on my hair with a different texture, and the result would never come out right, number one. And number two, my hair would tangle all the time, no matter what I did, and all that tangling and all those knots would set me back. That in itself was a mistake, following people with a different hair texture from mine and trying to replicate the routines. I have no doubt that wearing your natural hair in stretch styles without applying heat is better overall for the health of your hair. But I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to have to wait 2 days for my hair to dry. I want to be able to wear my hair during the week out if I choose to do so. So heat has been my best friend within that context. Mistake number 5, and I'm sorry who this is going to disappoint because I know a lot of you still do this, but my last mistake was relying exclusively on all natural products. I know that every brand out there now tries to take a more science-based approach or uses that term in their marketing, but there was a time where whether or not a haircare product was considered to be good for your hair was dependent on whether or not it was considered natural. Everyone was trying to run away from toxic chemicals, and that's how every brand removed sulfates and silicones from their shampoos and conditioners. I am so mad that it took me so long to realize that I love silicones, that my hair wants silicones. I will never stop putting silicones on my hair. When I look back on that era, there was no logic, it was just vibes. That entire belief hinged on the idea that silicones were putting a fake coating over your hair, and you wanted something that would not put a fake coating over your hair, but would actually make it softer from the inside out. The problem with that logic, of course, is that hair is dead, so you can only make it fake softer. Everything that you're going to put on there that will make it feel softer will essentially just put an outer coating on your hair. Even the natural oils, that's what they're doing. If you're doing a mask with God knows what natural oil out there, the reason why your hair feels softer after is because the oils provide lubrication to your hair. But conditioners and silicones are excellent at doing that. They were specially engineered to be able to do that, and they were also engineered to be safe. The recurring problem that I had with certain natural ingredients like shea butter or aloe vera was that they would irritate my scalp and my hair. This does not mean that there's anything wrong with shea butter or aloe vera. A lot of products that I love have either one of those ingredients, but in the raw form, they were irritating my scalp or were too heavy for my hair. But because I had internalized the belief that those were better for me because they were natural, I would not stop using them. And of course, the point here is not that everything that is natural is bad and everything synthetic is good. What I am trying to say here is that the constant fear-mongering around toxic chemicals prevented me from trying out products for years, products that have now become my absolute favorites. Instead of pouring rice water all over my hair because I was trying to make it stronger, I could have just bought something like the Pantene Miracle Rescue line that is engineered and has been created to increase tensile strength in your hair. To this point, I want you to know that oftentimes when a brand claims that they have removed sulfates from their products, they have, but they've just replaced them with even harsher surfactants than the sulfates that they were trying to get rid of in the first place, because the cosmetic chemists working on these products know very well that there's nothing wrong with sulfates, but they're trying to appease the customer. And companies love ingredient washing, where they will emphasize a natural ingredient in the marketing of a product, even though they fully well know that it's not the rose water in the haircare line that is going to make your hair feel softer, it's the silicones. This often happens with hair oils that are sold, unless the oil specifically says that it's 100% castor oil or coconut oil. There are oftentimes 90% silicones with a dash of natural oils. I'm not saying that they're bad products. I'm just saying that oftentimes they're just trying to appease your fears using marketing. I just want you to be aware of this. Do not let fear or marketing stop you from using great products. If someone had shown me this video years ago, I probably would have waist-length hair by now. But here we are. I hope this video saves you some time. If you want to know exactly what my haircare routine looks like, I have a video up that will appear here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you another time.